It is 1:30. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Assets and Infrastructure Standing Policy Committee for Thursday, May the 1st, 2025. On this day in 1967, we had 72 centimeters of snow on the ground. Just want to remind you that stuff happens in May, but that's not happening today. Anyway, let's begin with the roll call.
Thank you. Councillor Crowson.
Present.
Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
Here.
Councillor Palladino.
I'm here.
And I see Councillor Middleton Hope has joined us as well. And Councillor Campbell, are you here?
I'm here.
Excellent. Thank you. You have quorum.
Thank you very much. Adoption of the agenda. I understand there are some items that we need to adopt or to amend.
There's, we received one piece of late correspondence. The team has adjusted the agenda, is ready to put it back out. It'll take us less than 5 minutes to publish it right now, if committee would like. And that piece of correspondence is with regards to item 5.1. Forgive me, the title is Partners for Climate Protection.
Great. Any objections from my council members? No, we'll do that. 5 minutes. Get it back up. Thanks. We are back. Before we continue on, the City of Lethbridge acknowledges that we are gathered on the lands of the Blackfoot people of the Canadian Plains and pays respect to the Blackfoot people, past, present, and future, while recognizing and respecting their cultural heritage, beliefs, and relationship to the land. The City of Lethbridge offers respect to the Métis and all who have lived on this land and made Lethbridge their home. The adoption of the agenda, I have a resolution from Okay. Oh, is it right here? No.
Did I hand it to somebody?
From,
You hit it.
there it is. From Councillor Croson, be it resolved that the May 1st, 2025 agenda of the Assets and Infrastructure Standing Policy Committee meeting be adopted as amended. Councillor Croson. Oh,
Question.
question's been called. All in favor? Okay. Thank you. Consent agenda. I have a resolution from Acting Mayor Palladino. Be it resolved that the Assets and Infrastructure Standing Policy Committee, one, approve the minutes of the Assets and Infrastructure Standing Policy Committee meeting held on December 5th, 2024, and authorize the chair and the city clerk to designate to sign the same, and two, receive for information the status of directed resolutions of May 20th, 2025. Acting Mayor.
We'll call for the vote.
Question's been called. All in favor? That passes. Up next, we have a presentation from Mandy Parker, General Manager of Waste and Environment, regarding Partners for Climate Protection. Ms. Parker. The floor is yours.
I can talk loud too. Perfect. We're good? Perfect. Thank you. My name is Mandy Parker, and I have Mark Swenson with me. We're just going to go through the Partners for Climate Protection and the greenhouse gas emission reduction target and a request to perhaps have that reduced. Oh, there's a side button. Yeah, there you are. Thanks. Perfect. Okay, so Partners for Climate Protection, or PCP, is a voluntary program that's a consortium of the Green Municipal Fund, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and ECLI, which is the Local Governments for Sustainability. The City of Lethbridge joined the PCP in 2007 under the Environmental Services team at that time. Fast forward to 2017, when the city was contacted by the PCP to find out where we were at with progressing through the milestones. In 2018, we conducted our baseline inventory for the corporate and community, which completed milestone 1. Milestone 2 was setting a target that was proposed for the Community Issues Committee on March 2nd, 2020. The target that was proposed was a 20% reduction based on city projects, and there was an additional 15% that was suspected to automatically happen with the conversion from coal to natural gas at our generation plants. This would be based on the 2018 baseline by 2030. On March 9th, 2020, the official resolution was debated and amended to be bold and achieve 40% reduction. Being part of the Partners for Climate Protection allows us an opportunity for grant funding. It gives us kind of a leg up in terms of the Green Municipal Fund and anything that FCM has. So I'm just going to pass it over to Mark.
Thank you. So stemming from the 2020 council direction, reducing our greenhouse gas emissions by 40%, you can see the baseline of 2018, our corporate emissions were 167,000 tons of CO2, and our target, that 40% reduction, puts it at 100,000 tons. See on the right-hand side, you can see the breakdown from 2023 where our corporate emissions really come from. So it's from waste, so the Waste and Recovery Center, the landfill out there, accounts for about 57% of our emissions. Electricity, the electricity we use in our corporate buildings, is about 27%. So how are we doing? So if you look on the left, you can see the 2018 baseline of 167,000 tons of CO2. And our 2023, you can see it generally trend downward to 2023, where we reached 139,000 tons of CO2 equivalent. And that represents about a 16.9% reduction in our emissions from baseline. Now, following the direction from the 2020 direction, there was a team developed or a team set up by 14 municipal departments and led by Waste and Environment. And their goal was to develop initiatives that would reduce our corporate emissions by that 40%, so we could reach that target. Now, what the team did was they came up with 22 initiatives that combined could potentially reach that 40%. And given the fiscal constraints that we're in, we've got 4 options that are presented. Maybe is that better? Perfect. Okay. There we go. So option A will reach that 40%. So this includes all of the 22 initiatives that the GRIT team came up with, that they developed. And it would combined account for about 40% reduction. It comes at a cost. There's approximately $83 million capital cost and a $6.7 million operating cost. Option B also achieves that 40% reduction. This includes some of those 22 initiatives, the 15 high return on investment initiatives, which includes a heavy part of that includes renewable energy. So purchase of green energy or green credits is where that comes in. Option C meets about a 20%, approximately 20% reduction. We call it partial implementation. And this includes the same initiatives as option B, except for this option does not include the purchase of green credits or that renewable energy. So that's the one difference between option B and C. Option D would get us to about 17.8%. It's an estimate. And it's we titled it business as usual. It really takes into account the existing CIP projects that are there, that some have been done, some have not been completed at this point. So there's some existing CIP projects, as well as those required to maintain some levels of service at the water and wastewater treatment plants. So that too does come with a cost, even just our business as usual does. And what we're recommending at this time is that we do reduce our target, our 2030 target, from 40% down to 20%, and that we move forward with option C, that partial implementation. And that's to show that the City of Lethbridge is still working towards reducing our emissions, our greenhouse gas emissions, but also taking into account the fiscal restraints and constraints that we do find ourselves in. That's all we've got.
Thank you very much for your presentation. At this time, I understand we have a couple of people who are registered to speak, and I'll call Joan McNeil to make her presentation. Keep in mind, you have 5 minutes, and to respect everyone's time, we'll keep that at 5 minutes for everyone. So I appreciate you coming. Joan, Ms. McNeil, the floor is yours.
I congratulate the city for acknowledging that a 40% reduction in emissions by 2030, which they committed to in 2020 under the Partners for Climate Protection Program, would require a massive tax increase and a severe reduction in the quality of life in our city. What are we going to live without? Maybe water and wastewater treatment, which is by far the largest energy use in the city of Lethbridge. I hope the city has realized that whether we consider a 100% reduction or a 40% reduction or even a 20% reduction, The Partners for Climate Protection program is a global public-private partnership. It is nothing more than a sophisticated marketing scheme designed to direct multiple millions of our tax dollars into the pockets of the PCP's ultra-wealthy multinational corporate funders. Achieving the proposed emissions reductions will bankrupt our city and will have no measurable benefit for the climate. The real local environmental, social, and economic needs of our city will be neglected. All this is being done without community consent or full cost disclosure. The current ask of $23 million is the latest in a very long list of expenditures made since 2007 under the direction of the Partners for Climate Protection program. The predicted 2.2% reduction amounts to about $1 million for each 0.1% reduction in emissions. Have city staff provided a detailed and comprehensive cost-benefit analysis of Partners for Climate Protection spending since 2007? This should include a full account of all direct and indirect costs under the program, compared with a scientifically accurate assessment of benefits. For example, electric vehicles are not zero-emissions vehicles, and so-called green energy comes at a very high price for both the environment and the economy. Can city staff demonstrate specific tangible benefits from spending under this program? Have they documented specific benefits to the climate resulting from all the PCP spending? Are local environmental, economic, and social issues being neglected while we chase the phantom of climate change? Do Lethbridge City Councillors know that getting out of the Partners for Climate Protection program is easy? Emissions reduction programs are not legally required and they don't help the environment. All Council needs to do is rescind this resolution in Council, notify the Federation of Canadian Municipalities of withdrawal, and immediately stop unnecessary climate mitigation spending. The municipality of Thorhold, Ontario, withdrew from the PCP program in 2024 after they assessed the costs and concluded that the PCP's program's international objectives did not align with Thorhold's local priorities. I suggest that Council can start by introducing a motion to pause PCP activities and commission a review of all FCM-ICLEI-related spending since enrollment. I ask them to remember that local control is always better than global control. Thank you.
Thank you. I just remind it's decorum in this chambers that we don't applaud or shout or scream or yell or anything. That's just kind of the way we do it here. Thank you very much. We have our next speaker is Viviana Lartiga. If you can come forward. Once again, 5 minutes. Thank you.
Afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to come to this committee meeting and just present my question. I really just have a question regarding the PCP program. I'm curious when the corporate sustainability team will publish the 2023 emissions data, because that is missing, and I'd like to know when you will disclose to the public how much of their taxpayer dollars are going towards these initiatives. That's everything. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I will ask now if there are any other members of the public who want to make a presentation here today. Please step forward and give us your name.
My name is Corinne Duke Carroll, and thank you for having me here this afternoon. Respectfully, this partnership was signed by municipal councillors in 2007. That was 18 years ago. Fast forward, a lot has been changed in terms of our understanding of climate change, the language that's being used, and respectfully, I think we've all come a long way in understanding really what climate change is and what it means. With understanding our tax dollars will be transferred to corporate global investment funds. Is that correct? That's a question I pose. We're requesting full disclosure on the funds received, the investment monies, how the investments will be accounted for, reporting to of the funds, and who they are then redirecting the money to. Next question, how are the funds outside of this municipality for a project have any benefit to the people that are here in Lethbridge? We request City Council to produce the documents, studies, or environmental impact assessments that will clearly show how this will affect climate change in Lethbridge. Furthermore, we will be asking for a public consultation, tender process, contracts, and allocation of funds to each national and international corporation involved. These requests will also be submitted in writing to City Council shortly from this meeting. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other members of the public down front here? State your name, please. Again, 5 minutes.
My name is Dave Garrett, and I want to say I appreciate the councillors here. I recognize that they're dedicating part of their lives to serving the public, and that we're all in this together. I think a lot of Albertans have an idea of politicians based on the government that we have in Ottawa, and it's not fair to extend those thoughts to the councillors here in Lethbridge. From what I have read about the Partners for Climate Protection program, it seems like a gigantic waste of money. Some folks have asked specific questions, and I'd like to see those questions answered along the basic lines of what benefit are we getting for our money. $23 million is going to be spent. What am I getting for my share of that $23 million? I would request that the city withdraws from this climate protection program. From what I've seen, we are not getting value for our money. It's all based on the notion that the carbon dioxide that everybody in this room is currently exhaling is somehow toxic to the environment. Doesn't that strike you all as being rather silly? Let's stick with advances in science and realize that somebody's been pulling the wool over our eyes, and we need to stop it. I've just been told that there's a 5.1% property tax increase coming up this year. Let's save some money and stop this foolishness. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but that's just sort of the policy we have here as far as cheering. Who else would like to make a presentation? Step forward, please. Give us your name.
Pierre Gaulin, I'm a citizen of Lethbridge. I consider myself an environmentalist. My motto is reduce, reuse, recycle. I'm a mechanical engineer, amongst other degrees. And in the last few decades, talking about carbon print and CO2 has become very fashionable. And it's really easy to get emotional about those issues. Let's save the earth, whatever the cost. But for perspective, I think it's important to look at the data. I'm kind of a data nerd a little bit. And first, as others mentioned today, we have to consider, is CO2 really harmful? At the level that it is now, I don't believe it's harmful to human life. It's actually needed for trees, plants, our agriculture, and it's been shown that with the CO2 level going up, the Earth has been constantly getting greener, and it's shown on satellite pictures. So considering CO2 as pollutant, I think is misleading. And we have to consider that while China builds a few coal plants every month, we have to consider what percentage of the CO2 emissions come from Canada. I don't know if you know what percentage of CO2 makes up the atmosphere, but it's 0.04%. and it's in history, that's a low level right now, and 4% of that is attributed to human activity. Canada's contribution to global human-induced emission is approximately 1.6%. That's not even considering the fact that Canada is a carbon sink because it absorbs a lot of CO2 through our forests. So when we put all those numbers together, Canada's emissions represent roughly 0.0000256% of the total atmospheric CO2. What do you think the percentage of CO2 emission would be for Lethbridge? I did a quick calculation, conservative, because I think it would be less than that because we're not an industrial city, but this is the percentage of CO2 that's emitted by Lethbridge that contributes to global warming. 0.000000064%. So given those numbers, I don't consent to my tax money going through that program, and I think no other program should be looked at in that towards reducing CO2. And I refuse, I want to make it clear that I refuse that my money through my taxes be used on that program. Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else would like to make a presentation? Step forward, give your name. And again, 5 minutes.
My name's Art Stott. I'm a long-term Lethbridge resident. I have been out of town for a while. I'd just like to add my voice to those that are asking the council to seriously develop an accountability for how money is spent on these environmental projects that I know Ottawa is interested in performing or pursuing. But as a council, I think you need to be accountable to the people here. And I'd like to see the council seriously consider how they could do the accountability to show people what we're spending money on and what the last 15 years has resulted in terms of climate change that we've affected positively or not. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have another speaker. Come forward, give your name.
Heidebrecht. I just have a couple of questions. Would I be able to ask Mark, and is it Mandy?
You can ask the questions to us, and we
Okay,
may
sure. Okay. So my first one was, like, when you're talking about emissions, does that just mean carbon dioxide, or is there other pollutants?
We'll ask that after when you're done.
Okay. And then the other one was GRIT, that group. I was wondering who employs them.
Okay.
And then the other one was talking about credits and some back and forth. I just wondered about some clarification for that. I just don't understand it. And, well, we're talking about money today, and I just wondered, are the books open? Can we see how much the council, and that's came far before you guys came on board, has put into the Partners for Climate Protection, or since you joined the Canadian Federation of Municipalities in 2007? Those would be some of my questions. Thank you for your efforts, and I trust you'll be looking into this.
Thank you. We have another person who would like to make a presentation. Please give your name.
Hi, my name is Nick Shearer, and I just had a question, actually. I was just wondering, when and how do the questions asked today get answered?
Thank you. We will try to answer some of those questions as we go along. Move along to the next person.
I'm Leona Harper. I'm a citizen of Lethbridge too. And I'm Leona Harper. I'm a citizen of Lethbridge and have been for many, many years. I also am opposed to our contribution of $23 million towards this fund. I think that, like someone mentioned, I think that money could be used more locally. And for example, you already know that our wastewater treatment comprises 57% of our global you know, CO2 emissions or whatever, maybe we need to put some of that $23 million into refining and upkeeping and modifying those kind of things that are the most detrimental, so that we ourselves can take care of our problems rather than having to outsource our money to a global corporation that probably loses a good percentage of that money just in administration. Anyways, that's my point.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to make a presentation? Second time, anybody else like to make a presentation this afternoon? And for a third time? We see none. So we'll open this up for questions from members of council. First off, Councillor Middleton Hope.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all the people who made presentations today. They were heartfelt, well thought out, and well articulated. I too have many of the same kinds of questions and concerns that all of you have. I would like to ask our administration, first and foremost, and let's call this what it is. This is an initiative that, although perhaps is well-intentioned, asks our city to either collapse other, arguably equally important initiatives like water and wastewater mitigation in favor of this initiative, or increase taxes. My question to our administration would be, how much money is this going to cost, and where is the money going to come from? I have statements that I'll make, Mr. Chair, later on, but that's my first question to administration.
Okay. Ms. Parker or Mr. Sanchez, or who would like to respond?
Yeah, I'm just going to start answering that question, and then I'm going to pass it to Mrs. Parker so she can expand. Just a little bit of a clarification. When you look at most of these initiatives that are being presented today as part of the option that is being proposed, are initiatives that are also part of the Energy Conservation Master Plan, are also initiatives that are part of process improvements that we're doing at the wastewater treatment plant and the water treatment plant. And when I say this I'm going to give a couple of examples that come to mind. We might need to do retrofits to the boilers at any of the plants that we have, and these retrofits include replacing all equipment that is actually using more natural gas or more fuel for new equipment that will have a less consumption, therefore reducing their carbon footprint, and at the same time bringing revenue to the city in terms of less fuel being spent. So when we look at the $20.9 million, we're not approving that today. Today is just to reduce the target, and there will be future projects that are going to come in the future as part of the new CIP program, and those projects are going to be tied to a cost-benefit analysis. I will say 95%, or if not close to, all the projects that are being now explored are going to be those that will have an ROI related to them. When we look at all the options that we had on the 40%, there were others that we do agree that it does not make sense to go and do those, like purchase carbon offsets or carbon credits in order to meet a target. That is not what we believe we should be doing. That's why we're bringing this back in order to reduce that gap. Another element too is every time those projects are going to come in, there will be a consideration. I'm using the landfill gas, also that's another clarification. 47% is not related to the wastewater treatment plant or the water treatment plant. That 47% that we saw in the graph is mostly from the waste and recycling center or the landfill, is where we generate most of the methane that is actually accounts for the majority. There is an opportunity to reclaim as part of these projects that methane and actually reuse it, and some of the projects will be to produce renewable natural gas that we can actually reuse within our process, or there is a program where many other municipalities are actually claiming the carbon offsets and getting revenue for not generating that by flaring or doing another type of process that will include additional revenue for the city. So I wanted to do that introduction before I pass it to Mandy, and she can actually expand if there is any more specific questions in terms of what we're trying to propose today.
A lot of the projects that we have proposed, some of them are CIP that we're currently working on. For example, the greenhouse gas emissions at the landfill. Not only are we regulated or could be regulated, we're trying to keep them low enough so we don't have to pay and be regulated. So that project ties into this, that it's a benefit to this program. We don't pay the Partners for Climate Protection any money. It is a volunteer program. It's almost like a flow-through program where we're doing our projects and we're accounting the reduction in the efficiency type projects that we do to this program, and it also keeps us in line for funding for other projects that would benefit from greenhouse gas emission reduction. So the PCP, they get no money from us. These are projects that would come forward through the Energy Conservation Master Plan, CIP operating budget that would be pre-approved, would be constructed and tendered with our local policies and programs. So there's an opportunity to keep those projects local and or regional, however that works for whatever contracts awarded. For those, there is no money that goes to the Partners for Climate Protection. In terms of some of the other projects, when you saw that one graph that showed landfill gas and electricity and natural gas, we're looking to be more efficient. And so reducing the cost of our operating budget, those are some of the programs that are included in this. So when we do a building retrofit and do an LED light retrofit, say for all of City Hall, that will reduce our electric consumption for a long period of time. And so those are the types of projects that are beneficial to this. We're just kind of capturing it in an emission reduction to keep us in line for funding for other projects that are included in that. Does that answer your question?
If I may add.
No, actually it doesn't. But I appreciate both perspectives. What the question was, and I understand that we're attempting to identify and implement efficiencies across the board, which makes absolute sense. What I don't understand is there is a significant cost to this. That cost is borne by the taxpayers. At the end of the day, you've provided us with 4 options. Is there a 5th option whereby we do not spend that? We do not ask of Mr. Matthews to go looking for another $20 million.
So short answer to that, this will come either, we are trying to look at the synergies. And when I say we're trying to look at the synergies is these projects will need to happen in most of the cases because as Mrs. Parker explained before, those are efficiency projects that we need to do in the plants in order to reduce our operating cost. Mm-hmm. And actually it's going to translate in the future in avoid having additional, not tax, but in this case, utility rates, because most of this work is happening at the plants or at the utilities at the landfill. So we're trying to reduce our operating costs, so to try to contain future increases. We could say this here, we're done participating as part of the PCP program, but these projects, most of them, if not all, will still come back as part of the CIP cycle because we need to do process improvements in the plants and in the different buildings that we own. We're still going to achieve. We don't want to spend or to do additional expenditures that are not going to have a return for the residents or taxpayers or ratepayers. We just want to do the ones that we know are going to have a benefit for the city and for everybody. That's the reason we're here today, because keeping the 40% is not going to allow us. So again, if I can reiterate, these projects that we have today are projects that are mostly for process improvement and efficiencies across the corporation. So they are going to be presented in the future as part of the next CIP cycle in order for us to try to avoid further increases into our operating costs.
There's nothing specific to say that a project is brought forward because of the PCP. It's just a benefit for being in this program. It's brought forward for other reasons.
Okay, so I understand what you're saying. From an engineering perspective, it makes very good sense. From an economic perspective, which is what the people in the audience have asked, and which is what I am asking, is this costing us money? Is it going to cost us more money? And where is this money coming from?
Okay, so I can try to explain that with a past example that will demonstrate why we're doing this. So there is a project that we did quite a few years ago that actually we are still trying to see if we can get an economic benefit further to what we have today. If Council or SPC recall, quite a few years we did the conversion from LED lights on the street lights across the city. That project resulted in an immediate savings the following year of almost $1 million in electric cost for our operations program. So that's one example where, yes, we did an investment to retrofit to LED lights, and in some cases, this is where FCM comes into the equation, because they have incentives for people to try to do this work. So sometimes we apply for grants, and we might get half of the money, we might get a percentage, so our cost is less, and at the end of the day, we get a return for that investment. So the street lights is a really good example of that one there. The other one will be on the landfill gas, like Mandy explained before. In that particular one, having the landfill gas required us to do quite a considerable amount of monitoring and reporting back to the province, and also could have an implication. If we exceed the threshold or the cap that exists today, that means we will need to pay for that additional amount that is on top of the cap. By doing the landfill gas capture, we can actually process that landfill gas. We can get credits for the amount that we are not putting into the environment. We get that additional credit, and we avoid paying money for these projects. Most of these projects, they have a return of investment, and that's why we bring them forward. Every time we bring each one of these particular projects, we have a payback period. There is a benefit attached to the CAP programs, and we are only trying to bring what makes sense and what will avoid us to add additional cost. Mandy also explained to the PCP, the money is not going anywhere else. The money goes to tender process that are done in the city, and the contractors, for the most part, are local or could be from around the province, Calgary, Edmonton. In some cases, yes, could be from BC as well. There is whoever has the technology in order to do the changes that we need to do in order to implement the efficiencies process. There is a consequence too, or an additional benefit, which is reducing the carbon tax. And that's what we're just trying to link the two to explain the rationale why we're going the path we're going.
Thank you for your efforts to explain that. I'm not going to hijack the meeting any further, Mr. Chair. I'll cede the question to my call.
Councillor Croson.
Thank you, Chair. So my understanding of this is just simply a lens by which we look at projects. And I know it's not specifically under this, but if we look at the Rain Barrel project, we could look at this as an environmental project, but it's really a project to save residents money on water and to stop overuse of the water treatment plant, which has an economic benefit. Would that be how we're actually looking at this, is when we're going to have to do work on these buildings anyways, and we bring in something more efficient, just as an afterthought, we also get a check over here as well?
At it. It wouldn't necessarily apply to water per se,
no,
like the use of water, but natural gas and electricity, yes.
So these are things we would be doing because they're going to save money, because they're better and more efficient ways, and then it just happens to link up with this program. And since we're just focusing on this program today, we've got the numbers pulled out, but that's not the main purpose of this.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, if I remember back to how we came to the 40%, I know I was on council when that happened. It was not the recommendation in any way of administration. We can blame this all on Councillor Kaufman. He basically just laid down a challenge going, hey, wouldn't 40% be better? And that was what got voted in without much discussion that day. So at any time, did administration support the 40%, or is the 20% being brought forward a much more logical perspective from a citywide perspective?
When we presented it in 2020, our recommendation was the 20% because we had a lot, we didn't do the top-down approach and pick a number. We actually built the projects first that we were going to be doing anyway and came up with the 20%. And so we had that then, but went back to rework it to see what we could do to get to 40, and it just isn't feasible.
Yeah, it was more of a challenge than anything, and you're right, the feasibility has not been there. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Well, you're up here. I mean, the people have brought their concerns about, we want to see where this money is going to, or where it is, or where is, in response to that, where they want to see where the money is. What can you tell us?
We'd have to look at the individual projects that go through our tendering process that are publicly published, and look at those.
So you're not hiding anything right now?
No.
And there's a way that we can find information?
Yes.
So if I'm just going to add a little bit more into that, every single procurement process that we have is a public document. All the information is on the city website, bids and tender. All the different people that submit a bid is also there. And when we come back, we always do reports on the CIP. We're coming into a new CIP cycle. We typically close the loop for most of those. Most of the information in terms of procurement, if people have any questions, that could be supplied, but it's all public. It's public. You go to even the annual report, there are elements there that consider what our expenditures and the capital is for each one of the departments that we have in the city.
I will say, for me, I use 311 all the time. For my own information, is it fair to say that if people have some serious questions about what we've been talking about today, calling 311 will get you to someone who can answer those questions? Is that fair to say?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and they're highly qualified, highly educated, and they know who to send you to the right person and to give you the answer that you're looking for. Fair enough to say?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other questions from my colleagues? I see none. Oh, I'm sorry, you do. There you are, Councillor Schmidt-Rempel. Thank you. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, there we go. I got it stuck. Thank you very much, Chair Campbell. So, Ms. Parker, thank you very much for this, and certainly thank you very much to everyone who came forward from the audience to speak with this and share their concerns. Ms. Parker, how and are we considering the impact of any potential tariffs on these plans? Are those a concern? Are we looking forward that? Do we need to be looking at what tariffs might come in on this?
I think that goes down to the individual project when they're conceptualized and designed, and then they're gone out for tender. That's when each individual project manager of their projects would take a look at that and address those at that time.
Okay, and those individual projects then come back to council for approval. We would certainly be taking a look at those with the tariff or any other increased cost expectations?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And when we're going through the tendering process, if there's something that needs to be done, the purchasing department makes sure that we're getting the best value for our dollar.
Okay. And then I'm not sure if you can answer this, or maybe this would be something that goes to Mr. Sanchez. Option C includes $20.9 million in capital costs. Has this amount already been committed through previously approved CIP projects?
Not fully. There are some CIP projects in there, and there's some future CIP projects, or potential proposed, however you want to look at that. So each individual project would come forward and be approved on an individual basis.
Okay, and which CIP projects are there that are currently approved under this?
Mark, can I?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Really, it's the landfill gas and capture and combustion system that Mr. Sanchez and Ms. Parker already spoke about, and some of the increases in organics diversion you've seen over the last few years are organics collection. Those were projects that have happened or are continuing to see improvements. Some of those. And then some of the implementation of some of the energy audit programs at the wastewater and water treatment plants. So as the upgrades that are going on, Mr. Sanchez had mentioned, as we replace old inefficient equipment with new equipment, regardless of the equipment the new equipment, it's going to be more efficient. And we'll see those savings or those emissions reductions through those pieces.
Okay, so it would be fair to say that as we are going through these, the ones that we have already done or the ones that are already planned for, we're already seeing energy efficiency savings and a reduction in our emissions to start with. So that's just naturally happening because technology is changing and it's improving and it's reducing what we're emitting.
Correct.
Perfect. And then I guess just along with that, because we did get the question from the audience, and I'll ask this last question and then step out and come back in. Do and when will we publish any emissions data as well as any data in reduction in emissions that we've seen?
Yeah, pass that back to Ms. Parker.
So every year, our department publishes an annual report that we put online on the City of Lethbridge website, and we have the emission reductions in there.
Okay, and when does that get published? Approximately what month?
It varies. It's typically around April, May. We should be getting the 2024 report online shortly.
Okay, thank you very much, and I'll step out for now.
Councillor, Acting Mayor Palladino.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for your presentation. The three of you mentioned this, or at least touched on it, the initiative called a landfill gas collection and combustion system. What does this look like on the ground in real life? Is it flare stacks or?
So we have a bunch of wells that are installed underground in the landfill, and they have an underground piping system that goes to a gas plant, and then there is a flare stack it's an enclosed flare that will convert the methane to CO2 and burn off the methane.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Crowson.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm not sure if Ms. Park, if you can answer this, or Mr. Sanchez. So not that long ago, Council laid down a policy around asset management and the next capital budget. We have set and recommend very tight controls around capital budgets, that we're going to have very limited money. It has to go to asset management. It has to go to maintaining our assets. We're looking for things that will reduce operational costs. So what you are recommending here, how will it, or will it, and if it will, how will it tie in with that very limited capital budget we have, and how we are looking for a capital budget that is only on asset management and only that will reduce operating costs?
So that's a really good question, and that's something we have been working internally with Mr. Matthews, the CFO, in terms of the next cycle and even the current cycle. Most of the projects that will be presented, they will go through a screening process from the inception to the end before they are presented to City Council. And part of that screening process includes returns, cost-benefit analysis, ensuring that we are doing projects that are needs and not wants. And when I say that, is in terms of the operations that we have, we want to ensure, using the wastewater treatment plant is a good example. Some of the equipment that we are going to have for retrofits or increased capacity are newer technology that typically is somewhere between 30 to 40% less energy intensive. And when I say that, they can do more volume for less energy being used, natural gas or electricity. They are going to give us a double win in this case. We can reduce, or actually could be even more than that, we can reduce our operating costs, translating into savings. We can also process more volume, which will add more capacity to what we have, and we will have a reduction in our carbon footprint. So that's the plus, and that will come towards the target that we have here. So as I said before, these are going to happen as part of our process improvement process, and asset management is the key component. That's why we're creating an asset management plan for each one of the departments in order to ensure that we go through the same process to evaluate.
And the asset management plan will be essentially what we look at. Each capital budget that you bring forward will be reviewed in that, and then each council, and when it comes to council, each project will be reviewed by that council during that operating budget. So even if this is recommended today, there are many steps and many processes to make sure it's going to be the best cost, and we're going to create the best efficiencies we can.
100%. This is the first step before we bring anything else for council for future approval.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
So
Oh, sorry about that.
just to bring forward some other questions that we had coming out of the gallery. We talk about emissions and reporting on the emissions. Are we just reporting on CO2 emissions, or are we reporting on other pollutants as well?
It's a CO2 equivalent, so methane is converted into a CO2 equivalent, so it's all reported out on CO2 equivalent.
Okay. And then we had a question about the GRIT team and who they are employed by.
The GRIT team, those were department members from the city of Lethbridge who worked together to come up with these projects so that it was an agreeable process, and projects that weren't imposed on them, that were actually projects that they could deliver on. And so we included the departments.
Okay, and were those projects approved by Lethbridge City Council, or are those projects coming back to Lethbridge City Council?
Those would be projects coming forward to Lethbridge City Council.
Okay, and then there was a question around the clarification of credits. Could you just speak to that a little bit?
I'm not sure where to start with the question for the clarification of credits, because there's a few different things. If you're referring to the carbon credits that some municipalities are actually purchasing to become net zero, they're buying somebody's offsets. We can generate carbon credits from our reductions and have the opportunity to sell those as well. So for the greenhouse gas project out at the landfill, we can register that as a project and have carbon credits so that we can generate some revenue.
Okay, and we're not purchasing any credits at this
No.
point? Okay, we are a credit generator?
That would be fair to say, yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
I just want to, just to probably explain a little bit in terms for the general public on the carbon credits. We could see this, as Mandy explained a few seconds ago, we have two options. If we surpass the threshold that I mentioned before, at that time, we will need to go to the market and buy carbon or pay for carbon credits in order to be under that. We're not there yet. Those projects that we have done in the past is what is allowing us to be below that threshold. And on top of that, when you look at the credits that we are getting or we will get for the offset on the landfill, that's money that many other communities that have a landfill have already been doing, and we are entering into that game where we can actually reuse or sell those credits and reuse the funding back into our projects. And that not necessarily is projects for carbon offsets in the future, but can also be for any projects such as a landfill development cost. As we start to fill the landfill cells, we can use that funding to offset that cost and avoid future rate increases for users of the landfill.
Councillor Carlson.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, and thank you. And I had some trouble connecting earlier on, so I hope I'm not plowing ground that's already been covered. But just for my clarification, the request in front of committee and then council is to change our target. And I think Councillor Crowson sort of said council threw out a 40% challenge target several years ago. And just a yes or no from either Mr. Sanchez or Ms. Parker. What you're showing is that you can achieve that, but it's going to cost $83 million. Is that correct?
That's the estimate, yes.
Thank you. And so what you're recommending is to go with option C, which is the 20% reduction that was originally put forward by administration at a cost of, I've lost it, I think it was $20 million, 23, if I can find it again, $20 million. Is that correct?
Yes, that's the estimate of the projects that were proposed.
Thank you. And if we said reductions be damned, actually increase CO2, we're still going to have to invest in these assets, correct?
Correct.
So we're not going to see saying. So basically what we're doing is we are upgrading our assets and at the same time trying to save some money, same way I do in my house by replacing inefficient products with efficient products to save money. And maybe it's a feel good to some people, but to me it's pretty important. We're also reducing our emissions, correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, thank you. The other thing that I think has caused a bunch of confusion is the climate partners. We don't pay them. We don't cut a big check to some global elitist, correct?
That's correct. It's a volunteer program, and if we don't hit our targets by 2030, there is no regulatory ramifications.
Excellent. So it's not we're forming some global cartel who has climate change as their agenda. We are basically just doing important work, trying to save money, be more efficient, and do our part in protecting the environment. Am I correct on those?
Yes, you are. And the additional bonus is because we're part of this program, it's a little bit easier to get municipal funding from FCM and ECLI.
So even more savings to our taxpayers, correct?
If we're successful in getting those, yes.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Are there any other questions? I see no other questions. Thank you, Ms. Parker. Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. Thanks for everyone who participated today. I have a resolution from Councillor Schmidt-Rempel. Be it resolved that the Assets and Infrastructure Standing Policy Committee recommends that Council 1 rescind a portion of the March 9th, 2020 below direction by deleting 40% and replacing with 20%. Therefore, be it resolved that Council adopt a reduction of 20% of the 2018 total corporate emissions of greenhouse gases by the year 2030. Number 2, approve option C as outlined in the recommendations and options analysis section of this report. 3, direct administration to return to City Council through the Economic and Finance Standing Policy Committee for approval of any of the objectives identified in Partners for Climate Protection. Option C as follows. A, capital projects to be submitted to future capital improvement program deliberations. B, initiatives requiring operating budget changes to be submitted to future operating budget deliberations. And number 4, direct administration to return to City Council through the Governance Standing Policy Committee for approval of any policy implementation or changes to approve of any of the objectives identified in Partners for Climate Protection, option C. Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
Thank you very much. Thank you to our staff for their work on this, and thank you to the residents in our community who have come to speak to this. As I often do, I'm going to focus on the economic benefits of this motion, that these projects have an ROI and will save our residents in the long term. And my objective is always around how we can save money while growing the economy of our city. As we've heard, this is not a spend for today. These projects will come to us in the future and will be approved as they come to us. And as they come to us, they may or may not be approved, and that these projects will undergo a cost-benefit analysis before they do come before us. The projects are part of finding efficiencies and overall cost savings for the city so that we can invest those dollars into other projects. These projects will help us reduce the costs or overall operating costs and see long-term savings to the residents of the city of Lethbridge. And this allows us to take advantage of other programs that can assist us in finding cost savings and efficiencies. Further, these projects are part of other master plans that we as a council have already approved in order to meet our operating costs. These projects are process improvements, and we should always be looking for cost savings and a way to contain our spending. In looking at this is something we asked our staff to do at a previous economic SPC in our asset management planning. This is a relentless focus on critical infrastructure and restriction on our spending. It's a way to reduce operating costs and still a way for us to take advantage of grant funding at other levels of government and what they might have available to us. I would ask for my colleagues' support on recommending this to Lethbridge City Council.
I understand Councillor Middleton Hope.
Also for debate, thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
Good. I'm not in a position to vote today. I'm not a member of this committee, although I am a member of council, which precludes me from voting on this particular initiative. However, were I in a position to vote today, I would vote no to this initiative, to all of the options proposed, and a recommendation. I can assure my colleagues I look forward to a rigorous debate when this matter comes before Council. I suspect that there will be changes globally in terms of a new government that we have in Ottawa, which may change its priorities, and this program or portions of it may be in jeopardy. Yes, accountability is absolutely critical, and so is economic expenditures of this city. So I am not in favor of pursuing this further. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in for debate? Councillor Crowson.
I will be voting in favor of this. I actually like saving money and maintaining the assets of the city, and this is a smart way to do this, so I will be voting in favor of it.
No other debate? I too will be in favor of, I think as Councillor Schmidt-Rempel explained nicely, and I believe our administration answered a lot of great questions that came forward, and things can certainly change. But this will also be forwarded on to Council for a final ratification, but for now I will be in agreement of the resolution. With that, yes. All right, with that, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Okay, passes unanimous. Thank you. I have a submission here from 6.1. Ahmed Ali, Transportation Engineering Manager, read the status update on downtown bike lanes. Do I have any questions from members of council on bike lanes? Oh, right. First of all, anybody from the members of the public that wants to make a presentation or talk about bike lanes? And I see none. Oh, there is someone who would like to make a... Is this about bike lanes? Yes. Okay.
Just an observation.
Just give your name again, just
Dave
for the record.
Garrett.
Okay.
My observation is that when I drive downtown, I see a lot of cars in the car lanes, and I don't see any bikes in the bike lanes that take away one of the car lanes. My observation.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else who would like to make a presentation? Is there anybody else who, oh, there is, okay. Step forward, give your name.
I'm Brent Dewar, and I have driven through downtown for various personal and business reasons, and I have talked to different owners of businesses, as well as noticed myself that in these bike lanes, I mean, I was down between 9 and 10 and 11, and I went home at 12. I saw no one. And this is a wonderful day to be riding in a bike lane, driving anybody, a senior, anybody. There's none. And my husband has tripped over the border lines, whatever they're called. And I found that the city has narrowed it so much that it is, you know, the streets are narrowed down. And yes, the notice that was out there, or the comment was, it has slowed the traffic down, which is fine. We all go 40, 50 through the city, and it's maybe slowed it down. But I'm finding that they are not used like they're supposed to be used, and I have heard other comments from business people as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to make a presentation? All right, step forward, give your name.
My name is Sachi Gold. And I noticed, even before you built the bike lanes downtown, the bike lanes on 13th Street North were hardly ever used, almost never, and especially not in the winter and the inclement weather, and especially not when we get our 100-mile-per-hour winds. No, nobody's on a bike. And downtown, those curbs are dangerous. That's a lawsuit waiting to happen. My daughter already tripped over them once carrying her baby, and they take up parking spaces and driving spaces. And what's more is there's this gratuitous, you cannot make a right turn now on a red light from 7th Avenue onto 4th because you have to yield to the bikes. But there are no bikes. So you've just taken away a right turn possibility on a red light for no reason. There are no bikes anywhere. Anywhere. And how many of you ride a bike here? right? You're instituting this stuff, you're not even doing it yourselves. It seems very hypocritical to me. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to make a presentation? Step forward, give your name.
Joyce Garbett. I understand that some years ago, the city signed on to become a 15-minute city. I've heard Agenda 2030 mentioned a number of times today. That's the WEF, Agenda 2030. They want us all living in 15-minute cities, not driving vehicles. Hence, we're getting all these bike lanes downtown, and I highly object to them. Thank you.
Anybody else would like to make a presentation? Anybody else like to make a presentation? And finally, anybody else on bike lanes? I see none. I'll open it up for questions. Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
Thank you very much. One of the questions, and I'm not sure who we're addressing for this, but
Mr. Ali is here.
Mr. Ali? Okay. So, Mr. Ali, with regards to the bike lanes, what are some of the things we've done to improve the accessibility issues around them? So people with wheelchairs or walkers, mums with strollers, how have we improved some of the accessibility issues downtown around the bike lanes so that people can easily be able to more easily access the sidewalks while going over the bike lanes?
Yeah, since the operation began last year in 2023, our team has done some work. Bryce, you want to speak? So they have been in, constant communication with businesses and users, and have made changes to the curbs on the bike lanes. And Bryce can explain what has gone in that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so we've removed blocks from 57 parking stalls.
Mm-hmm.
Pardon?
You just,
Can you hear me now?
yeah.
We've removed blocks from 57 parking stalls
Okay, and whereabouts were those exactly?
on 4th Ave and 7th Street,
4th Ave and 7th Street? Okay.
sort of strategically where someone would.
Strategically where there were some issues to make it easier and more accessible. And then I'm understanding that we are installing some new parking stalls downtown this week? And
Yeah.
whereabouts are those going?
They're on 6th Street, just south of 4th, right beside the BMO. We're putting in 7 stalls.
Okay. And that's to accommodate for some of the parking stalls that we lost when the bike lanes were installed, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Ali, I just, the winter wasn't a horrible winter, but I know that was an issue when bike lanes were first put in, and in terms of snow removal. What did you notice during during the snow periods that we had this year, and what kind of response were you getting? Oh, okay. Mr. Jewell.
Thank you for the question. I'll try to handle the operation and maintenance aspects for Mrs. Ruck, our operational manager. I believe there's a correction as well in your report. It said we spent $24,000 in 2024. That did not include some rental of equipment that we had to rent last minute. So it's actually $39,500. $40,000 we spent in spring of 2024. And as you said, we did not have a bad winter. Last year was a lot worse with, remember the March, it was last winter, January, February, and March, we had some really bad storms. So that was the $40,000 spent. So we've estimated $80,000 is what the bike lanes will cost, but we also have to rent some equipment, some brushes and brooms that are 1.5 meters wide. So that's in there with the suggested operating costs of the bike lanes. In winter, $80,000, and that all comes out of the existing snow and ice control program anyway. And then I believe there's a $10,000 estimate for street sweeping and line markings and maintenance of those bike lanes. Does that answer your question?
Sure. Just, I had a question here. What was the question? I'll pass it on to Councillor Middleton Hope.
Thank you. So some of this will be directed towards Mr. Ali, no surprise. Mr. Ali would have us believe out of this report that there are no financial impacts. I suggest, Mr. Ali, that you go and talk to the businesses in the downtown core who have been upset for the better part of the last 2 years in regards to the installation of these bike lanes, which have impacted their businesses. So I object to the comment that there's been no financial impact. The decision by a previous council has very much polarized our city. Businesses, seniors who do go to doctors in the downtown core to seek appointments, or go to the bank, because my generation still goes to the bank. They do not seem to have a voice in this process. So how have we connected with those who have to negotiate all of the impediments that have been put in their way downtown?
So, you know, the whole process, like we have presented earlier as well. So from the beginning, as you mentioned last councils, so the process has been, you know, transparent with lots of public engagement. So since the construction began, Bryce and our construction team has been in touch with businesses and other stakeholders in downtown. So our purpose of today's update was primarily to provide information on usage and operational costs. So that's what we are presenting here today.
Yeah.
So as far as the public engagement is concerned, that's a constant thing. So currently, I think Bryce and we received some emails from some business owners, and we are responding to them as well. So there were some concerns about parking, and we undertook parking study twice, last year and this year. And we continue to have, you know, availability of parking. For example, this year's parking study indicated that parking occupancy along 64th Avenue, a maximum during the working day was 65%. It means there's a lot of parking available. And on 7th Street, on the bike lane area only, not the whole downtown, it was 64%. So overall, there is a lot of parking available. So the concerns of some businesses that the parking is not available may be coming from the perspective that the parking is not available right in front of their businesses at the time their customers are coming.
Yeah, it's not the parking that has created this angst amongst our citizens. It's the ability of people to be able to access their businesses. So it's walking over the bollards, it's walking over the concrete dividers, it's going through the lane to get to the sidewalk, both in winter as well as in summer. That's where the concerns lie. So at one point, we were advised that this was developed as a result of a federal grant. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And we continue to move forward with developing bike lanes in the city, even though I believe council has said no more bike lanes.
If I might just explain that a little bit. Just to clarify, we are not doing any more bike lanes within the downtown core. There might be bike lanes that are going to be happening in the near future, and those are related to pathways, related to the Caldwell Link pathway that we're doing. So those are outside of the core of downtown. We are not doing anymore. And also, just to explain a little bit, yes, we have had concerns and we have had communication with downtown businesses. I can say that specifically, I can remember at least 3 that we have been engaging in the last year or so. And there have been a dedicated team, including Bryce, including Mr. Brumman, that have been working with them in terms of different options. And you're right, some of the concerns are in terms of the barriers and how they access those, and the snow when it's winter time, that is hard to see sometimes. That's where Mr. Jewell say that we actually are spending a little bit more because we bump up a little bit the service in order to be able to provide what we need in order to make those more accessible. On top of that, I know the team has also changed and added accessible parking in certain areas specifically for people to do this. And when we ask Mr. Ahmed to do the parking study too, is because I will say more than half of the complaints are specifically to parking. People cannot park in front of my business. It's hard for them to walk a block. So we have been trying to explain that there is a balance between parking in front or parking a block, and we also remove those barriers to allow people to not jump on top of it. So definitely there is more work that we can do, and we will be doing that in order to improve the conditions. And when it comes to the grant, yes, this was a federal grant that we use to pay for part of the cost, but we're not doing anything else in the downtown core as per council direction.
Okay, last comment then. In regards to the federal grant, am I wrong that we had to maintain the federal grant conditions for a period of 2 years before we were in a position to be able to change it, without having to give the money back?
So you are correct in terms that we need to maintain for a period of time, but the period of time is 5 years.
5 years.
5 years since we did the implementation. If the city goes ahead and remove any of this infrastructure within those 5 years, then there has to be a repayment of the federal grant that we have in place.
Okay.
What we are also trying to explore, and is part of the report, I want to also address that. We went ahead and installed traffic count devices through the bike lanes. And the report has the numbers. Even during the winter time, there is an average of 20 plus people using the bike lanes per day. And during the summertime, this number, if I can recall correctly, has gone up in some of the lanes up to 150 plus people using the bike lanes. This is early stages. It's no different. I'm going to use the analogy when we did the recycling and the organics. It takes time for people to understand how the system works, get more utilization, and I have directed the staff to continue doing this traffic count because we want to see what the progress is. And you're right, maybe 3 years down the road, we can come back and make a decision or a review if need be. At this point, there is a good uptake in the program, and we just want to continue monitoring in order to provide reports as needed.
With the low ridership, or literally ridership, during the wintertime, is there an option available to us that would close the bike lanes during the winter?
I think I will probably let Mr. Yule expand more into that, but the cost to remove and install is going to be very significant, or it could add a hurdle. And on top of that, some of the infrastructure is actually fixed. So Darwin can expand.
Put a barricade.
Yeah, that wouldn't be a practical solution, whether they're permanent or temporary barriers in the roadway. And I was going to add to what we had talked about before. Bryce had indicated we removed 57 of these barriers. That was to create spaces between parking stalls, not changing the fact that it's a dedicated lane still, but allowing people to park and get through if you're in a wheelchair, for example. So that was the reason we created more spaces without lowering the quality of the bike lane. The bike lane still existed at 1.5, 1.8 meters. What was the other question was around, can we make this temporary 6 months and 6 months? Not a practical solution, because it's really a 2-lane roadway with a lane of parking, or a 2-lane roadway. 7th Street is only a 2-lane roadway right now, and so you couldn't create a 4-lane roadway there.
Not asking for that.
Yeah, well, you wouldn't be able to take out the parking lane, the bike lane practically. It's just, people get used to it as is, and so you have to leave it in, I think, a period of 3 years minimum to get used to the change, and in reality, a period of 5 years, because the grant requires 5 years. The other thing I wanted to comment on was the usage. I'm not sure if it was asked with SBC here, or the perception that these are not being used. Well, the old Transportation Master Plan, it was pretty embarrassing that only 1.3% of the people that moved were moved on a bike, yet 5% of the people that moved were pedestrians walking. Right now, the data that Ahmed's group had identified is doubled in a year. It's already doubled, and you saw the range there. I'm going to use the example of the 7th Avenue bike lanes. When they came in 2017, They doubled every year, and it became a huge increase. It's not hard increasing from 0 to 1 to 1 to 4, but now it's increasing fivefold. I think it was 800% increase in a 5-year period. So it's increased hugely, but you need time to get people used to that. And so we are trying to balance our modes. You want a fair, equal opportunity for a pedestrian, a cyclist, and a vehicle to be able to use our infrastructure.
Thank you for the explanation. I'll step out.
Councillor Carlson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One of the speakers asked who rides a bike. I tried to raise my hand, but I'm not sure if it was visible. And so I'm struggling because we're kind of going all over the place with this submission, which is just about giving an update to council about how well the bike lanes are being utilized. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. Because I really appreciated the information because I do bike and I do take transit, not as much as I possibly should and will be doing much better in a few months at that. But one of the things for me, and it applies to, the reason I mentioned transit, because it applies the same. Until you have a system that is up and working, you understand it, you feel safe and comfortable, it doesn't get utilized a lot, and especially if the connections aren't there. And so what I'm really excited to see is that we've completed some of the connections to the bike lanes. I think Mr. Jewell just talked about 7th Ave, which is really cherished by so many folks in our community as a very safe place to bike, but you couldn't get to downtown. So we actually had stranded bike lanes on several sides of our city. So my question, Mr. Ali, or when did we complete the connection from 7th Ave to downtown for biking?
Yeah, we have it here in the report as well. It was in June last year, June 2024.
So not even a year.
No.
And already we're seeing an uptick. This is the way I read the report. Already we're seeing an uptick in usage, correct?
Yes, we have the data.
Yeah.
Until December. Yeah, and yeah, that's correct. Like, but when you see the context, we have motor vehicles in thousands. Like in our report, we had 5,500 vehicles on 4th Avenue and 25 vehicles on 7th Street. So when we see these numbers compared to, say, 150 or 160 cycle trips, they look small. But, overall, as Darwin indicated, our mode of travel for cycle was very low. And it's steadily increasing, as we have experienced on 7th Avenue Bike Boulevard. That was, I don't know if everybody knows, that was the first bike boulevard in the whole of Alberta. Now many other cities have followed suit. So when you provide opportunity, they come. So there's an old saying, you build, they will come. So they will come. We are pretty optimistic about it. And the protected bike lanes are considered based on, lots of evidence that they are the safest and most preferred ways of cycling in any urban area. And that's what we are doing now. And
I would agree.
So the numbers will increase, but the numbers look small because their share currently is small, but we are hoping that they will go up. In many cities have seen this. When you provide opportunity for people to feel safe when they're cycling, the numbers go up. And there is evidence. It's not just my wish.
And Mr. Ali, thank you, because that's what I was trying to get to, is that we have only a few months of data in front of us. So trying to draw some conclusions right now would be probably inappropriate. But in council, we'll be receiving updates annually or however.
Annually, next year we will come back again.
Right, and so we'll have some ideas moving forward. And I think that was my only question is, I do have another question. We do have about the operating costs, and we talk about the maintenance costs, 24,000 and 2,600, and now we're estimating 80,000 and 10,000. For how many bike lanes? All the bike lanes in the city or just the downtown core?
Just the downtown core, because we set up a specific work order in 2024 when we opened the bike lanes late 2023. And that 24,000, I had corrected, the 24,000 is really $40,000 is what we spent on winter operations, January, February, March, and April of 2024. We had some pretty bad storms, if you remember. I also remember we were a little bit over budget in 2024 with our snow and ice control program. So this year, this is why we didn't have the rest of the year data in there. So we wanted to make sure it's reasonable. $80,000 is a reasonable amount, and it'll leave us a bit of money to rent some equipment. But that's all from our existing operational budget of 3.88 million or whatever that is.
Okay, so that's just for the downtown core. Yeah. Just at some future point for my knowledge and comparison sake, could I have the figures on what it costs to operate and maintain the same amount of roadway in our community? Because we never seem to sort of say, oh yeah, but every kilometer of 4-lane road costs X. We only pick and choose the ones we want to look at. How expensive are our roads for just our transportation, we'll say?
It's a
How expensive are those to
It's
maintain?
an extremely difficult question to answer, because I can give you the easy answer is 3.88 million is the snow and ice control budget, and we have 580 kilometers of road. But are we talking about Whoop Up Drive, where we spend 50 times more than another arterial road or a local road that we may not even go on other than doing a bit of sanding? So it's orders of magnitude different. So, but we can always come up with a number of arterial road where we spend most of our money, and that would be on a cost per kilometer. So that is I think we could come up with that cost per kilometer, because we track roads by priority. That would be a priority 1 road, and track our budgets by that. So, but the bike lanes are definitely more expensive on a cost per kilometer to maintain, because these are 1.5 meter small. We need smaller, slower equipment. You can't run a snowplow through a bike lane. So it's more expensive, definitely, to maintain, but we're balancing that with it's a lot safer, or perceived safety, for the cycling lanes. I think somebody mentioned the 13th Street cycling lanes. Those are unprotected, nothing but a painted line separating them. A snowplow blasts off to the right on that one. So bike lanes, the dedicated protected bike lanes, are definitely more expensive to maintain. We know that.
So what I will add to that is that definitely we can add, I think that's an excellent question, and we can add that for the next report. And Darwin also made a good point in terms of we need to compare apples to apples. So we will look at a road that will be equivalent in terms of priority and the functionality, which is not going to be 100% equivalent, but at least we can bring that cost for the next report and then have a comparison between those.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Palladino.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before we put this thing to rest here, I get a kick out of this, the writing here in this report, because I'd probably write it about the same way, but I get you're defending the project. But when you say the cycle track development has contributed to reducing speeds along 4th Avenue and 7th Street, and the reduced travel speed is a proven intervention for improved road safety. So by approving the bike lanes, you reduce the speed, and by reducing the speed, you have a safer road. It'd be easier just to say, let's reduce the speed on 4th Avenue, right? Just an observation.
So
there's no question.
Yeah, I understand. So I just want to clarify this. So the thing is, you can reduce the speed by putting sign, very easy way to do it. But unless you have some kind of, friction created on the road, people are not going to be compliant as much, and we have seen this. So we are doing this residential speed limit pilot currently, which we will report back to council probably later this year. So we have put the signs, and there is evidence from other municipalities as well. So the difference in the speed limit is much lower, but there is more impacts on actually overall collision records because of the perception. People are more careful, and therefore they collide less. But without, now these cycle tracks, when we have the curbs, they create like horizontal friction. And so automatically that impacts the speed. And there is tons and again evidence in worldwide that lower speeds, especially in downtown settings, will help in overall collisions.
Yeah, personally, I avoid 4th Avenue completely. With all of the markings and the bollards and the paved or the painting, and I go on 3rd Avenue or 6th Avenue. I just stay out of the downtown in a car. Oh, this is the only part of 4th Avenue.
Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
Thank you very much. And just as a point of information, the Lethbridge Police Commission heard last night that LPS is taking a look at some of the incidents along the bike lanes and bike lane safety. And that should be coming back to the commission at the end of May. So that's something that council might want to take a look at and be aware of, and also something that you might want to be aware of, that Lethbridge Police Service is looking at the bike lane safety as well, and what incidences and collisions may have occurred while the bike lanes have been implemented.
Yeah, so we did review the collision data until 2024. We don't, we usually get a data a 1 year, back. But we are now trying to get data as it happens every month, so we'll be able to do more analysis, but we'll definitely look forward to working with, we work with them, with police, and we'll definitely do something about it if there is anything needed.
Mr. Sanchez.
Yeah, I see I'm connected with Nick. I thought we both thought about the same comment too, because we have worked really close with LPS on the bike lanes, and to the point that actually all the videos that we have done for education and outreach and training for users of the bike lanes, we have had a really great support from LPS. Sergeant Dera actually has been helping us to create this, and we are making sure that these are communicated, and we want to ensure people know all the rules. So they have been great.
Let me just one final question, Mr. Ali, I suppose. What does success of bike lanes look like? Are we looking at an exponential in amount of bike lanes, like up by 800%, or what? Have you got a number? Within the next couple of years, when you say, yeah, this was the good thing to do?
So our transportation master plan has a target of 5 to 6%. I'm not 100% sure here, between 5 and 6%. So currently, if I compare the current usage on 4th Avenue, it's between 2 and 3%, 3.5%. So yeah, in downtowns, generally the usage is much higher. So if you could go the ratio of motor vehicles to cyclists, at least on these dedicated cycle tracks, from say current usage to 10%, will be really, feel that it's a good success.
Is there a more, maybe a non-tangible story of success about riding bikes? Not just numbers, but something, I don't know, maybe just a feel-good story about people riding bikes, or what kind of impact it makes on people? That's kind of a philosophical question, I guess.
Yeah, the idea behind, trying to move people away from cars, some people might say this is not practical, but that has been tried in many places in the world and been continuous, these efforts are going on. So there are many benefits. One is, we call it sustainable, health, and then road safety as well. So the more people on cycle, the less number of people on vehicles that translates into, and that also adds to the value of the overall societal values, I would say, are, go into the idea that we must promote the alternative or active transportation modes.
Right. Good, thank you. Thank you very much for your report. I see no other further questions. Therefore, I have a resolution from Acting Mayor Palladino. Be it resolved that the Assets and Infrastructure Standing Policy Committee receive the status update on downtown bike lanes for information. Acting Mayor Palladino on 4th Avenue.
This is for information only, and I will call for the vote.
Question's been called. All in favor? That has passed. And with that, we are adjourned.
Adjourned.
Thank you. Thank you all. Rock on.
Are you coming to the vigil tonight?
I hope to, yes.
All right, well, I might see you later then.